I'm happy to be back on the brew.
Yeah, I am excited. We are live. Hi, everybody. Thanks. Well, we should probably give it a couple minutes before. Let me go on here, and I'm going to share our video really quick. Once we get a couple people on, easily, you are probably a 3-hour show at best.
3 hours of rambling. So
a 3-hour show. For sure. Rambling, no way. The stuff that you, I mean, I think you've been on the brew 3 or 4 times, maybe. You're probably you were one of our first guests for sure back in 2017.
Mm-hmm.
You actually came and, hey everybody, you actually came to where we were going live, and you were like actually in the brew studio, if you will.
That's right. That's right.
So without further ado, we do have some people watching. So, hi everybody. Hi.
I apologize in advance then to your audience.
Oh, stop it. Stop it. You're awesome. I'm telling you, I've been really boosting some JB. I've been boosting some JB.
Great. Check is in the mail.
Oh, somebody just said, we are J-Bam's biggest fans. Aw, that's cute.
I sent them a check in the mail.
Been waiting since 7:20. I know. I'm sorry. It's never a dull moment over here on this end of it. So please introduce yourself to the audience, and I already know how awesome you are. So go ahead and please.
Yeah. Sure, no problem. So my name is Justin Bamforth. I've been looking at all this high strangeness, whether you want to call it paranormal, UFOs, Bigfoot, metaphysics, psychic phenomena, whatever you want to label it as. I've been studying it, researching it, investigating it for quite some time. But as anyone who works in this field can tell you, we don't choose to pursue the phenomenon. It tends to choose us for whatever reason. And like so many others, my quote unquote origin story begins at an early age. I had some interesting experiences growing up as a kid, living in the house, and going through my parents' divorce. But it kind of like changed my perspective on all this. And I've started to look at the phenomenon from a different lens, as something that it could be all connected. And one of those particular facets, which we'll focus on tonight, is the strange story of the Men in Black, the real life Men in Black, not the movie with Tommy Lee Jones and Will Smith. So that's a little nutshell of who I am.
Yes, and what's interesting too, okay, so you sent me recordings, and you sent me, which is on paranormal.org, but when I looked at the photos, I was a little confused with the first photo, because I'm thinking Men in Black are like Mr. Anderson's, right? The Matrix stuff, and that first picture, the guy kind of looked like, an Italian mafia guy, unless I was looking at the picture wrong. He kind of looked like he was like a little round. And for me, I would think the Men in Black that you typically see or you think of in your head are all slim and, tall, well, put together. I mean, you really couldn't see those pictures, what I mean? He was like, that's who it was, right? The guy that was sitting in that little cutout where the...
Yeah, well, let's kind of rewind a little bit for your audience that may not know what the heck we're talking about, right?
Sure.
So on paranormal.org, I have an article up there called Photographic Evidence of the Real Men in Black. And what I've done is I've kind of curated like a collection of 3 particular images that I consider to be the best photographic evidence, or the more legitimate photographic evidence that we have of these strange entities, whether they're men or something else. And, there's the stereotypical Man in Black, which is, one that is black clad, usually wears a suit, fedora, sometimes dark sunglasses, the whole to do that you typically are accustomed to seeing in the movies, right?
Right.
The first photo that I have there is one that was captured by Timothy Beckley and Jim Moseley back in 1968. It was in Jersey City, New Jersey. And the interesting thing about that particular photo is it has a backstory, right? So to make it short, there was one particular UFO researcher who was, studying this sort of stuff. His name was Jack Robertson. And he was looking at this. He was in an apartment or high-rise building across the street, right? And his wife kept noticing that when Jack would leave the house, this strange man would just show up and start staring up at the window at where they live. Or he would just, hang around the building and he would, keep showing up. So the wife, her name is Mary Robertson, she phoned Tim and Jim and said, hey, look, he's right. He's always showing up here at a certain time of day. So Tim Beckley and Jim Moseley, they decided to make a surprise visit, right? So they just drove there without telling them that they were coming. And as they're coming down the street, sure enough, as Mary had described, there's the guy. So they snap a photo as they're, right there. And that's what you see on my site right there. Then, it was a busy street. So they're trying to find a place to park. So they go by and they see the classic, black Cadillac, right?
Right.
And at that time, MIB were constantly seen driving these pristine black Cadillacs. And they still are to an extent today. Not always. But they take a photo of the vehicle, they go around the block, and they're not around the block for very long. They come around, the car's gone, the guy's gone, and they're wondering, how the heck did he flee the scene that fast? Now, again, in talking with Tim Beckley about this, he agrees. This doesn't definitively prove that this was an MIB. So I want your audience to take it with a grain of salt. What it could potentially show is a possible MIB. That's it. So it's something to consider. Then, yeah. So that's
I'm trying to share. If you see this popping up, I think I'm clicking on the wrong thing. Let me see. I'm trying to share the picture from your website, but I don't. Go ahead. I'm just. I don't want you to think I'm distracted.
No, that's okay. That's all
but
right.
I was trying to get the picture, but I don't know what I'm doing.
That's okay. We'll blame the Men in Black for that. So
yeah. Oh, here we go. Wait a minute.
Yeah, we'll see if we can put this photo up. I mean, it's certainly a curious photo. There it is, right there.
Yeah. Now, but nobody can see us, right? But I'll leave it up for a second.
No, they can still see us. They can still see us.
Oh, they can?
Yep.
Okay.
They can see our beautiful faces.
Oh, yeah. There we go. Oh, I see it now. Okay. I don't see us, but you can see us. All right, go ahead. So this is the photo.
Yeah, so the photo is interesting, and like I said, in talking with Tim Beckley about this, it doesn't prove that, that MIBs exist. It's just a strange guy in a place that happens to correspond with what the witnesses were talking about.
Right.
He got, the vehicle, and then as they circle around the block quickly, it's gone. So it's something to consider. This is what, trying to catch these guys on film is no easy thing. They're very elusive. And every time an investigator tries to pursue these guys, they're gone. It almost seems like they're more afraid of us than they should be, because they're the ones that have this eerie presence about themselves. They have this, these peculiar mannerisms that are very disturbing. And it's weird. And not to mention that in some of the cases, they've been very threatening. So here you go. Here's one such thing. Now, further down, there's a second photo. This is what's known as the Alan Greenfield photo, taken in Charleston, West Virginia in 1969.
There we go.
Yeah. Now, this is an odd story right here. And what's also interesting is that Alan Greenfield hung out with the guys who took the first photo. It seems like there's a circle of people, and you can attest to this too. It's almost like the phenomenon tends to follows groups of people. And this goes without saying with ghostly phenomenon, with UFO phenomenon, the MIB are no different. It tends to kind of like travel around. So, we're looking at 1 year later, we have this second photo. This was taken at a conference, I believe, and
This
they
one
were.
here? This
Yep,
one, or you just scroll down?
yep, you got it.
Okay.
And what happened was, if I recall, Greenfield was he was attending this UFO conference, and he kept noticing this guy who kept like coming up and taking a particular interest in his group. So they went out to have some, I think it was lunch at a restaurant across from where the conference was being held. And sure enough, there's the guy, right? And he's staring at them. So Greenfield decides, I'm going to confront this guy and find out what his deal was. So he goes to the guy, and sure enough, there's the guy. He's walking away stiffly in that familiar robotic mannerism that is described in a lot of these MIB reports.
Right.
So as he's chasing him, he takes a photo of this guy, right? And he's right in front of the guy then, and he asks him, what's your deal, right? Who are you? And the guy responds, I'm a man in black in training. So then the man goes around the corner, Greenfield follows him, and then he's gone. So now again, does this conclusively prove, MIBs are real? No, it doesn't. But it was a strange encounter, and it's worth noting because it follows these same patterns.
Right.
Now, what I like in the third photo, this is a video still of what's referred to as the Niagara Falls incident. This is in Ontario, Canada in 2009. If you scroll a little bit down, there you have it. This is a still frame taken from video surveillance footage inside a hotel lobby in 2009, on Mother's Day. And these two gentlemen came into the hotel lobby specifically seeking out the hotel manager at the time. His name was Shane. And the interesting thing is Shane was not working that day. He was off. He took a rare day off. So these guys are coming in and they're harassing his employees instead. Shane doesn't know what's going on. The next day, when Shane goes back into work, his employees are coming to him one by one and saying, hey, we need to talk. There are some really weird individuals. If you scroll further down, you can see that there's a YouTube video right there, and you can click it. You might not want to play the sound if we're talking right now. I want to mute the speaker.
Okay,
there you go.
All right.
Now, the original, this is the people who uploaded this footage is the API. It's a great organization. They were the ones, Marcia Barnhart was the original investigator that looked at this case. I connected with Marcia several years later and asked her about details with this, and then further followed up the case by interviewing Shane, talking with him, exploring some other avenues that weren't looked at before, possibly ones that had paranormal implications. So what you see in this video is you see the two guys coming in. That's all you see. Now, again, does this prove that MIB exists? No, it doesn't. But what it does prove is the testimony of the employees that day.
Yeah.
They told Shane that there were two strange men. They looked identical to one another. They almost looked like clones. They had no eyebrows, no eyelashes. They didn't even blink. And when they talked to people, they had this some sort of disturbing mannerism that really shook people up. It was, as described by one of the employees, it was almost like they could read her mind. Mm-hmm. And they weren't accepting the fact that Shane wasn't there. Now, why Shane? Well, the year prior in 2008, he had a series, two very interesting UFO sightings right at the hotel. So this was during the wave of like a bunch of triangle craft sightings, if I believe, that were investigated by another group. And Shane's initial report was published in one of the local newspapers there. He talked about it. He thought his UFO incident was very peculiar. Anyways, a couple weeks later, he has a second incident, a UFO incident. A couple weeks later, he then has a weird paranormal incident where he's outside of his house and he's cleaning his, his gutters, and this strange man shows up out of nowhere, this older gentleman. And he's just staring up at Shane as he's on the ladder cleaning out his gutters. And he's like, "Can I help you?" And the old man is like, "Hey, I lived here. You're doing such a great job." Shane's like, "Okay, let me show you, show you around." And the old man goes, I built this house." And Shane's like, "Oh, so you're the original owner. This is so cool. Let me give you a tour." And he's showing him all the things that he did, and they're walking around his house. And then abruptly, the old man goes, "Okay, I got to be going now. I'll see you in a year." And then he shuffles down the street in what was described to me in a manner that it looked like his feet weren't even touching the ground. Now,
Oh, wow.
it's a little odd. Here's where it gets stranger. Shane's talking about this incident with his neighbors. One particular neighbor who had lived on the block for her whole life, she knew the original owner. And he's describing the fact that, "Hey, I ran into the original owner. He built the house, yada, yada." And as he's describing this guy, the neighbor goes, "That's impossible, Shane. That guy died like 15 years ago."
Oh, wow. I just got chills.
Yeah. Imagine how he felt, right? So
Right.
this kind of like blows his mind. I find out after the fact, way later after interviewing him, when I was hanging out with him and his wife at dinner one time, his wife revealed to me that she had talked to other neighbors totally, separate from the one Shane talked to, and they also confirmed the fact that this was a deceased individual. So what is this, right? This is not UFO related. This is not Men in Black related. This is, I guess you could classify it as like a ghost in a way. Right after that, it was like poltergeist phenomenon took place in his house for the next several months. Things were just haywire, and it reached a certain point where Shane and his wife really thought about selling the house, getting the hell out of there. It was really, messing with them. Then it just stops. It just stops.
Wow.
Then Mother's Day 2009, Shane gets the strange visit by these two gentlemen, and that's it. Now,
That's
were
it.
these guys? Yeah, that's it. Were these guys connected with this series of events? I don't know.
I mean, I would say yeah. I mean, especially if you listen to the audio, because I watched this, and with the one employee that was like talking to him and explain. I mean, he was like shooken up and like not upset, but he was like, the interaction was so weird. They were mimicking each other. They were like saying the same things, and they were the way they moved. It was so weird, and they were so tall. They were like 6'5", and I mean, he was just like very, And then I think, like what you said, they're connected. I think once you open up that door, I think you open yourself up to the possibilities of anything. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's almost. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, here's something to consider, right? When you say opening up that door, now could it be that we inadvertently open up these doors?
Right.
Again, after I had originally interviewed him, and when I met up with both him and his wife, then his wife revealed to me that it was a very tense time in the house. They were under a lot of stress, like a tremendous amount of stress. And could that have somehow contributed to this? Could that have been some sort of door that was opened up as a result? I don't know. Again, this field is it's highly speculative, right? We can only make assumptions. We can only, propose theories, ideas. Nevertheless, something strange did happen to this family. Something strange happened to this individual. Something strange happened to his employees.
Right.
That's all we have. Now, that neighborhood that he lives in also has some strange activity. So once this pandemic is over, one of my goals is to get out there and start to interview some of the other people to find out, is it this strange area that is kind of like, ripe for this type of activity? When you look at the geographical placement of it, it's not that far from, the Hudson River Valley, right? Like on the other side in the US, because a lot of UFO activity has taken place there. Could it be that, these certain waves of activity happen in certain places, and then they move and they shift around. I don't know. Again, highly speculative.
Well, and then you think about that with this whole door opening. The first thing that came to my head, and I do bring this up a lot. So, but that Skinwalker Ranch, right? I mean, that seems like that's just a big, huge, you know. I don't even know what to call it, but it feels like the stories that come from there. There's everything there.
Yeah, yeah. It's almost like it's yeah. There's certain areas, you know, in the world that seem to be, dare I say, portals or dimensions.
Right.
Again, it's, you know, it's romantic to think about those things, but
Right.
could there be a reality to it? But the thing with Skinwalker Ranch is the activity there is cyclical. So it goes through these cycles, you know, where there's a lot of activity, then no activity, then a lot of activity again. And the other thing is, it's not just centered to that location. People who go out there and who leave, sometimes the activity follows them. And with the original science team that was out there, that's what happened. The people who are there today, who own the ranch today, they can tell you the same thing. When they leave the ranch, sometimes that activity follows them. And what is that? You know, why is it that that particular activity has most of it, but yet it can travel around? I mean, that's a disturbing concept right there.
Oh, for sure. 1,000%.
Yeah, it's like in paranormal investigating, right? Sometimes you go on a very, you know, negative case and then it follows you back.
Right.
Could we be dealing with a similar energy here or a similar concept? This sort of psychic residue that tends to stick to some people, but not to others. It's bizarre stuff. But again, yeah, Skinwalker is a great example, and I love bringing that up.
Yeah. I would never go there. And I have never watched any of the documentaries because I would be too upset and thinking about the animals the whole time, you know, because I'm a little psychotic when it comes to, you know, protecting animals. And I probably, you know, I always say I'm one letter short of PETA. I'm just PET, you know, and I'm like, you know, it's one letter short. I'm not that crazy, but, you know, a lot of my friends saved me from watching that because they know how sensitive I am to animals. So they're like, yeah, no, you probably shouldn't, you know, watch that. But it sounds awesome, and I probably wouldn't go there, you know.
Yeah.
So I have been sharing the recordings that you shared with me.
Right. The also known as the Gary Sudbrink recordings.
Yes.
And I just want to put it out there. He might be watching right now. So yeah.
Stop it.
Okay. I mean, he told me he was going to, but
that's awesome. I mean, those recordings to me. So I shared this with you, and when you shared them with me, I listened to all 4 of them, and while I was listening to them, I suddenly got this feeling like I'm like, this isn't for me. Like I shouldn't be listening to this. It made me feel very uncomfortable. Now I know this is on your website, and I know anybody could go there and listen to it. You know what I mean? It's like anybody, but I'm listening to this and I'm like, why is this making me feel weird? You know, like I feel like I shouldn't be listening to it. But I couldn't stop, even though it was making me feel very uncomfortable. But I didn't want to shut it off. And I looked at my boyfriend. I said, you know, I could listen to, you know, Emily Rose being exercised. And yeah, that makes you feel a little uncomfortable. I'm like, but this is different. You know, like this is on a different level. And I kept feeling like I should stop, but I didn't want to stop. And I didn't stop. I listened to the whole thing. And afterwards I just sat there and I felt kind of like invaded privacy wise. I don't know. It was the weirdest. I've never ever in my life have ever had that feeling before.
Well, imagine how they felt, you know, when it was
Yeah,
happening.
no, first of all, I'm listening to it. I was like, I would be hanging up and calling 911. I'd be like, why do these people know so much about me? Although the dialect was different, the context was different. Anybody could argue that somebody maybe have called and was using a voice changer or doing this or doing that. But then again, were voice changers around at that time? Maybe. I don't know. I didn't really look into it much. However, the contact and the way they were and the way it was talking and the things it was saying, you know, and how it knew, or when he talked to his friend, or supposedly talked to his friend the day before when he really didn't, you know, it's like, there's so many weird things that happened. Now, like the first gentleman you were talking about, I think that guy also did he have an experience with UFOs prior?
And a side note, that gentleman, Shane Sovar, I just saw, he just joined this video. So he is watching, so he can, if you have questions, ask him in the chat. You know, there's the straight source. So, but
yeah,
continue on.
No, so this is the guy, from the
video.
From the video.
Yep, you got it. Everybody's watching your show tonight, Darren.
Yeah, that's awesome.
A lot of pressure.
Well, and so when I was watching with that guy's stuff,
you could talk bad about him now.
No, but it's interesting that with his story, they show up, he's not there.
Exactly.
But with
Gary Sudbury,
with his story, it's like they knew he was going to be there. They knew where he was at. They knew what he was, you know. And if it's the intelligence is the same, was there like this mind thing with them going when he wasn't there and having these other people experience and tell him this story?
Yeah. All right. So let's backtrack, right? Again, because some of your audience is like, "What the hell are you talking about?" Right? Who is this Gary Sudbury guy? I'm not clicking on anything. It's spam. Anyway, so
spam.
That's right. That link right there. Wow.
Right.
We'll steal your ID. Well, you know, and that's a perfect segue into the Gary Sudbury case. They essentially stole his ID, if you want to think of it that way, because in the recordings, they're in, well, here, set the stage, right? He planned in February of 1993. He planned to visit his family, make a completely unannounced surprise trip. At the time, he was stationed, you know, with the Air Force in Texas, and his family was in New York, Long Island, New York. And he decided he's going to make a surprise trip to go visit them, right? Not tell anybody. And he didn't, you know, he didn't even take like a leave of absence of, you know, nobody knew. So he is in the airport, and these two strange men start talking with them. And, you know, to make a long story short, they were obsessed with him for whatever reason. And they were upset. The second guy was obsessed with finding out Gary's name. And it was just very, you know, odd. It wasn't, you know, paranormal. It wasn't supernatural. It was just strange. So Gary gets on the plane. This is all in the airport. Gary gets on the plane. He goes to Long Island. He lands in JFK Airport. Both he and you know, once he gets into town, he phones his friend Mike. And as he's on the phone with Mike, Mike tells him, "You just called me, buddy." And Gary's like, "What are you talking about? I just got into town. I didn't tell anybody. I didn't call you." And then Mike is like, "Yes, you did call me. In fact, you sounded like you had a, you know, stuffy nose, a cold. Like, that's why I'm not hanging out with you." And Gary's like arguing with Mike, like, "What the hell are you talking about? I did not call you." And Mike is like, "Yes, you did. You said you flew in through LaGuardia, which is not where Gary flew in through. He flew in through JFK." And as he's fighting with Mike, there's a beep. Call waiting's coming through. Gary pushes the button, hears this strange voice, and instinctively, you know, because he's no stranger to this high strangeness, he presses record on his answering machine and captures the first phone call, which I'd love for you to share live on the air if you can. We're going to give it a shot, everybody.
Okay. So let me go to okay, give me a second. Let's see.
No problem. This is a commercial break. We're brought to you by Mint Tea. It's the favorite drink of choice for the Paranormal Brew.
I'll probably like, the good thing this is like, all right, let me see. So I'm on your page. Now let me look.
There's another commercial break. Don't drink too much of this mint tea, or you'll end up like this guy over here. Now we're back. Yeah, so it's right at the top slider. It says strange calls, I think, or creepy calls from a strange entity.
Hold on, let me go to your, is it the media?
No. Right when you get to the normalparanormal.org, it's right at the top. There's a sliding image and there's a picture of a phone. Just wait for it to slide through, and then you click on that phone.
All right. I'm going to go to, oh, wait, here we go.
Meanwhile, the audience is like, it's right there.
Oh, there
Just
it is.
click it.
Okay. All right. So listen now.
You got it.
All right.
We're going to try to share this with you guys live. If it doesn't work out, just go to the site. You can hear it for yourself.
All right. So I got to go back to us and say share screen. All right. Share screen.
Yep. Now, the first call is easy to listen to. Now, keep in mind, they're midway, they're already in the middle of the phone call or it just got started. So you're going to hear the voice. You're going to hear Gary. You're going to hear his mother and father in the background because it was at their house.
Yeah.
And I warn you ahead of time, there is some language. So
yes. And that's okay. I mean, it's the brew. So, all right. So let me do share and then share screen. Hold on. Now I forget how I did it. All right. Wait a minute. Oh, here we go. I had to pick. All right.
All right.
So, all right. Ready?
Yep. Let's do it.
You can see me?
Sure can.
Yes. I'll tell you who it is. Yeah. Do you want to speak to him? Yeah, who said Steven? Are you playing games with me or what? Huh? Steven, if you're playing games, we're going to kick your ass. So how long are you going to be back? Huh? You'll be impersonated by the other voice. Yeah, this is you, Steve, you idiot. You pissed me off. Jerk. I'm going to get you on. Let's see what it says. Review. One new call out of area. Is Steven out of the area? You're going to be back from Texas. Wait, say that again? You're being impersonated by the other voice. Wait, hold on. Is Steven out of the calling area or what? What do you mean you don't know? He's in Queens. I don't know who the fuck.
Hello?
Here's Gary's Sudbury there.
Who is it?
Hello? Are you going to be back from Texas? What was that again, sir? Being impersonated by the other voice. Oh, be quiet, man. Sorry, would you see that again? Hello? Being impersonated by what voice? Hello? Yeah. Hello? Yeah, hold on a second. Yeah, what is your question? I'll answer it. So how long are you going to be back from Texas? How long will you be impersonated by the other voice? Right. When am I coming back? Is that your question? Okay, there was a break. Hold on. You want to know when I'm coming back to Texas? Oh, is that your question? So how long are you going to be back from Texas? How long am I going to be back from Texas? That question doesn't make any sense. Okay. I'll be coming back eventually. I can't tell you when. You should know that question, the answer to the question, because you seem to know more about me than I do. You know what I'm saying?
Are you an intergalactic person?
Are you a space alien?
Sounds like you hung up. can't believe this. He hung up, Gary.
See if he comes back.
All right, I'll hang up.
So there you have it.
Hold on. Oh, I can't pause it from there. Hold on.
That's okay.
So I got to
yeah,
tell you something though that's interesting.
Okay.
So I'm watching on here, but I have my cell phone here, so I can like see the comment. You know, just have a little bit more and be able to share stuff. And I have my phone on mute. So when you have your phone on mute, it does the closed caption. It's typing across the bottom everything that we're saying. And the only words that have not been typed across the screen were any time that this thing was talking. So it's typing up everything I'm saying, everything you're saying, and then everything that Stanley was saying. But every time that the voice talked, it wasn't typing it across the bottom of the screen. So it was only things that he was saying. So that was a little interesting thing, but go ahead.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting things about it. And again, does this conclusively prove the existence of the MIB? No. What this shows is that Gary Sudbrink and his family received a strange call from an unknown.
Oh, Gary, I said Stanley. Sorry.
That's okay. You're probably thinking of Stephen. Stephen is his brother, his older brother.
Right.
And he kept referencing Stephen. So Gary has two brothers, Stephen and Brian. And Stephen, he kept thinking it was Stephen, playing a joke on him. Now, why Stephen? He wasn't known for being a prankster, apparently, but why him? Well, a few years prior, there was an interesting incident that Stephen had. Stephen was en route to a wedding, also in Long Island, and he saw Gary Sudbrink drive up alongside him, his brother, drive up alongside him on the road, make weird faces at him to try to get his attention, and then drove off. Now, Gary was in Long Island at that time. This is a few years prior to all this. But he had neither a car to drive, let alone the car that he was spotted in, which was the exact same make and model of the very one that was parked at his residence in San Antonio, Texas at the time.
Oh, wow.
So here he has this impersonation thing. Now, here you have this voice stating you're being impersonated by the other voice. Not to mention that he was right on the phone with his friend Mike when this first call came through, talking about some sort of doppelganger or impersonation, if you will. What the heck is that? Is there a connection? I don't know. Why him? I don't know. The interesting thing about this particular phone call is this happened at 10:30 at night. They received a second call. Now, for the sake of time, we probably can't play all of the phone calls.
We can do whatever we want, unless you have something to do.
No. Hey, okay.
This is my show. We can play. We can do whatever we want.
Okay, you hear that, Paranormal Warehouse? This is her show. So yeah, all right, then let's do it. Let's play the second call, because it was about 40 minutes later that this entity called back. Now, also, before we play that, I want to say that you heard two other voices on the call. You heard Gary's mother and you heard Gary's father. Now, Gary's father gets on the line. He goes, "What are you, like an intergalactic space alien, right?"
Right.
The reason he said that is because not too long prior to this incident, he and his uncle had a UFO sighting that they were actually reporting to a very well-known investigator, Coleman von Kavetsky, at the time in New York. And that's a whole nother story, but is really interesting. So was this entity somehow tied to his father and his uncle? I don't know. But the entity is referring to Gary. Gary's just, trying to see his family. He didn't ask for any of this stuff.
Right.
But thank God he pushed the record button on the answer machine to record this. And, it's very interesting. So second call comes through.
All right.
Let's play that. This is at 11:10 that evening.
Oh, I gotta go here. Okay, hold on. And the transcripts are there in case anybody can't understand. And anyway, can anybody just let me know? Can you guys hear that okay while I'm playing it? If you guys can hear it. If you can't hear it, let me know.
Yeah, there you go. again, some of these calls are very hard to hear. So if you have headphones, use your headphones, or crank up your speakers and, scare everybody else in your house.
Yeah.
The calls, though, get progressively quieter. So
Well,
keep
they
that in
also
mind.
get a little bit more. I thought that they got progressively more odd, and the content got a little bit more weird. And
Yeah, that's true. I mean, just looking at the first call, like, how long are you going to be back from Texas? Well,
right,
grammatically, that doesn't make any sense
right,
because it'd be when are you coming back from New York?
right,
And nobody else knew about this trip except his family and Mike.
right.
So let's play the second one.
All right, here we go. Ready?
What is your question? Yes, speaking. Yes. Can I answer any questions for you? Not back yet, no.
Hold on. I just want to say one thing. I know that right now it's a little hard to hear, but he does say I got to go back into the other room because I think he realized like the other phone was picking it up a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
So right now he's not on that same phone, I don't think, right? So, and I think he says something about going back to pick up the other phone. So it does get kind of loud again.
Yep.
But all right, go ahead. All right, shut up, Taryn.
Let me answer. First, you tell me, where are you calling from? Yeah, why don't you tell me where you're calling from? What do you mean, who is this? You should know who it is. It's me, Gary. Wait, let me answer this question. Where are you calling from? Okay, I'll be back. Excuse me? I can't hear too well. Yeah, there's a full moon out. That's true. Could you identify yourself? Identify yourself. Why are you calling me? Excuse me? I cannot hear too well. Hold on, let me switch phones.
It's so weird. It just sounds so not normal.
Okay, hold on. Now, who are you? Keep an eye in the sky, he said. Yeah. Walton. Okay, hold on. Repeat that again. Please repeat. Okay. Near Orion. Holy mackerel. Tonight was just a win. The full moon. Repeat. Okay, repeat last word. I'm hearing static. How am I like the book? He hung up. He hung up? Hello?
Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay.
So that's the second call.
Right.
Very strange stuff.
Yes.
Now, in that call, the entity refers to Orion. Now, let me tell you, he said, keep your eyes to the skies, near Orion. I'll tell you, his family went out and they watched the skies after this. They were watching Orion for a while.
I wouldn't. I would, because I watch a lot of ID on Discovery. I'd be like, there's some crazy dude that's sitting around the corner trying to lure me out of my house, and I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna look at the sky. I'm gonna think it's Orion, what's going on in the sky, and then I'm gonna get murdered. That's what I was. So I would not be going outside.
Right. Well, what's interesting and significant about Orion is not the obvious, right? Like, again, going back to Gary's father and his uncle, when they had a UFO sighting, right? They were en route to visit another strange incident in 1988, I believe. There was a radio tower that collapsed at the Green Bank Telescope Observatory in West Virginia. Now, don't ask me why, but they speculated that a UFO cut it down with a laser, okay? There was another, an actual, report that had said, like, no, it was something else that caused it. But nevertheless, Gary's father and uncle went there to kind of get the story straight, maybe talk to some people and find out some answers. As they were going en route, instead, they see a UFO while driving. Very interesting. Where the Orion connection comes into play here is the particular telescope observatory that they were going to. A major achievement of that particular telescope was it was the first to discover, and I'm no scientist, but this is what I found, is they discovered a helical magnetic field in interstellar space, coiled like a snake around a gas cloud in the constellation of where else but Orion. So now, again, is there a connection? Not necessarily. But I thought it was very interesting how there's a tie-in. And anybody who follows the phenomenon can tell you that there are certain coincidences, then there are certain synchronicities, there are certain things that leave you wondering. The phenomenon never gives you clear answers. It just keeps, leading you along like a dog on a leash. It keeps giving you just enough to keep your interest, and then it leads you nowhere. It's very exciting and very frustrating at the same time. So I throw that out there for what it's worth. I don't know if there's a connection.
And I know Shane's watching, and I know you said that nothing's ever happened since, but has there ever been? I know you said that the two men that came in, or the two MIBs, I'm just going to call it that, the two MIBs that came into his job, was there ever a connection found from what he had experienced prior? Were there ever?
Well, a connection in what way? Like a connection to the paranormal
like
events?
You're saying, like how you just said that the Orion thing, the water tower, this and that, and like just having that one little link.
Oh, okay. I think you're getting confused with the two stories. So there's Shane's. Yeah, Shane is the video. It's all right. It's all right.
Yeah, Shane's the video. You said that you didn't know if it was related to what he had experienced.
Oh, gotcha.
Right?
Yeah, right. I see what you're saying.
Look, so
we can only speculate. I find it very uncanny that, this gentleman shows up at Shane's house, again, not connected to the Gary Sudbury case, but this gentleman shares. No, that's okay. That's all right. Because I think I see where you're going. Was what happened with Shane connected with his incident with the strange old man that was supposedly deceased? Well, keep in mind, the old man said, "I'll see you in a year." Shane never saw this man again.
Right.
But he had a visit by two MIB the next year.
Right.
It was like 7 or 8 months later. So,
well,
keep that in mind, right? But it wasn't exactly a year. It was like, again, the phenomenon, it toys with us, it messes with us. It likes us to think that certain things are connected where they might not be connected, or they could be connected. I don't know. It's all, again, speculation. With this Orion thing, with the Gary Sudbury case, is there a connection? I don't know. All I can tell you is that this is what happened. This is what they did. And they didn't see anything with Orion at all. They didn't see anything in the sky. But the caller calls back a third time that night at 11:38 p.m. This was the last call for the night. Now, I want to tell your audience, this is very, very difficult to hear. The audible volume is very, very low of the voice. So you're really going to have to focus.
Or if you have headphones or something like that, then the last call's, normal again, but this one is low, but it's definitely, a goodie.
Okay. Yeah, it's taking time from the talk. Who is this? Steve, this is not funny,
Brian, it's not Steven.
What do you mean, Brian?
I mean, Karen.
How do I know it's not Steven?
It's not Steven. Hello? I had a UFO experience in West Virginia, which you probably know. And I know that you're into an intergalactic person. Can you speak a little louder? Sir? Can you speak a little louder?
Let me speak to him, Dad. I guess, I don't know.
All right, I'll hang up so you can talk to him. He wants to talk to you.
Okay. Hello, can I help you? Yes. Yes, that's me. Yes, could you please identify yourself? Identify. Yeah, I'm back. I'm in Texas right now. Oh, he asked me a question. No, I'm in New York right now. You know that. Why are you asking me such a question? Yes. Stephen, if this is you, I swear to God, I'm going to be pissed. Huh? I'm trying to listen to him. Excuse me? Okay. Eventually, I'll be back from Texas. Could you speak more? Please speak more. I guess it's not Steven. I believe it because I'm getting static. Let me go on this phone because I can never hear on this phone. Hold on. Okay. Okay, please speak. Hello? Okay. Should I go out right now? Right now? Okay, see, I'm not sure where Orion is now, but we'll go outside. It was show double from me. Repeat that again?
Yeah, so there you go.
That's the third call.
That is the third call. That was the last for the night. So imagine going to sleep after getting those, right?
But we have one more. That was just the last of his night.
That's right. That was the last of his night. Now, what's interesting about, the style of calls, right? Because, I've listened to these a bunch of times, it helps to put me to sleep, no, I'm just kidding. I wake up in the morning, I'm like, I want to listen to some Gary Sudbury calls today. Feeling good. And then I feel bad after listening to them. No, they're very interesting calls. I've analyzed them. I've looked at them. I've, kind of like picked out the entity's tone, right? And what I've noticed is in the style of calls, right? I counted 17 instances in the first call, 16 in the second, and 15 in the third. If you listen to each one of those calls, they become less audible as the night progresses.
Mhm.
Now, why I find this interesting is it's similar in nature to how people report MIB speech, right? Could these be artificial beings of some sort, right? Similar to like a robot or an android, but maybe a lot more complex. Could these things be running off of some sort of energy source? A lot of people have commented, okay, are these just recordings? Possibly. But when I really listen to these and analyze them, there are slight nuances, slight variations in each way that they say certain things, or that this
Texas.
entity.
Texas was
Right.
one of, because he's the first time he just says Texas, and then this one he's like Texas, like the
Right.
S is dragged out.
You got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. So that's what makes me think that maybe these are not recordings. Now, again, is this evidence of MIB? Not necessarily. But I find it very interesting, the similarities. When you talk with people who have had face-to-face encounters, they tend to describe it in a similar way. Very robotic, very mechanical, very methodical.
And I hear what you're saying about the robotic and the mechanical and stuff, but it's not. I think as human beings, and if we do it with the paranormal stuff, which is why people are like, don't you get scared when you see something? And I'm like, by the time I know what's happening, it's over with. I don't have time to be scared, right? So because what's happening is my mind's trying to, a quick example. I thought I saw a bird in a bush and flapping, and I'm like, but the bush isn't moving. Nothing's. If it was a bird, how's a bird flying around inside of this like small little bush and nothing? There's no noise. There's nothing moving. But I had to go through that thought process after the fact that it happened. So with these recordings, I think us as humans, we have to find a rational reason for what we're hearing or seeing or what we're experiencing.
Oh yeah, sure.
Right?
We do that all the time, right? We try to fit it within the framework of our own reference points, right? We try to like categorize it and explain it away in logical human terms. But what we're dealing with here is clearly not human. So therefore, we need to stop applying human logic to it,
Right.
and start just taking it for what it is, not labeling it, not categorizing it, just being like, okay, this is strange phenomenon. Yes, there are some similarities to other strange phenomena, but it could be that all these phenomena are the same thing. Now, again, speculation, but they're assuming different identities or archetypes based on the constructs of our own mind. We are projecting what we want to see or what we want to hear or what we want to understand because that's all we know how to do, right? We tend to, as humans, try to make sense of the chaos. But with these recordings, it's very hard to make sense of it because the entity will say stuff like show double of you, the full moon. What is it trying to say? Is it trying to warn Gary? Is it some sort of other sort? Maybe you're dealing with two different forces in this case. One that is impersonating Gary and one that's trying to help him. I don't know. I don't have enough information to say either way, but nevertheless, something strange is happening here. Now, that being said, there's a fourth call. And this call happened, let's see here, this was the next evening. Now, his mother wasn't present for it, but his uncle was. So you have Gary, his father, and his Uncle Tom. Now, again, the audible nature of this call is back at like full strength, if you will, similar to the first call. And there's 17 instances of this entity coming through in this recording again, similar to the first call. So let's play that, and that's the final call.
Yeah.
Yes, this is me. Can I speak to you? Can I ask why you're... Yes, can I ask why you're calling? Can I please ask? Yes, this is. Yes, that is me. Say that again? Leave? I'm staying right here. Is this a joke or what? I have to think about that. I'd like to see you.
Hey, let me tell you something. I've been listening to you, and I've had contacts with you.
Government interference? You have? Please explain what type of interference. Okay.
The sun will rise from the dark side of the moon.
Okay, what branch of the government? What should I do? Okay. Is that good for me or bad? They hung up.
Yeah.
And then that was like what, the last, and then they never
called again. Just like that. You know, that's telling. I mean, we run in that all the time with the phenomenon. It just, the leads run cold. Like, you know, things just abruptly stop. Like, that's it. Now, there were other strange things that happened with this family. You know, bizarre incidents, but nothing to this extent. This was very intriguing. Why I like this case is because if this has happened once, that means it has happened again. That means there's other people maybe listening to this show, I don't know, who have encountered this. I've heard this with alien abductees. Sometimes they receive strange phone calls of a similar nature. There is sometimes abduction researchers get these strange calls. If there's one, there has to be others. And, you know, I encourage your audience, if you have had some of these strange experiences that, again, you don't know how to categorize it or what to call it, how to classify it, send it my way. Those are the stories that I want to hear. The things that you can't easily figure out or understand why the heck they're happening. Because there could be something to this. an interesting thing is, there was another lady that I'd interviewed. Her name was Marie D. Jones, and she had an abduction research group in the 90s out in San Diego, California. Now, what's interesting is, this was before the abduction phenomenon was really, like it is today, where everybody knows about alien abduction. This was still, a new territory. So she formed this kind of like this support group for other abductees. And there was one particular individual named Anna, or who she calls Anna. And Marie and Anna were like the leaders of this group. And Marie started getting weird phone calls of a similar nature to this. But the caller, the way she described it, now she didn't record it, but the way she described it was very similar, robotic nature, very, disturbing, especially when the caller started saying things to her like, identifying what book was on her bed. It gets weirder. Things that Marie did in her life in her 20s that nobody else would have known about.
Wow.
It was almost like showing her, hey, I know more than you think. Wow. But the caller was more interested in not so much the abduction research, but interested in the group as a whole and letting Marie know that, hey, I'm aware of these people. Then Anna started getting the calls. Then Anna started getting like knocks on her door, visits by similar MIB type entities that, again, moved in a very mechanical way that would just show up in the middle of the night. It was so much that it kind of deterred them to just disband the group and call it a day, and it never looked back. So, right. So again, no, she does not have a recording of the voice. I just saw a comment from Jocelyn. Now,
yeah,
Marie does not. This was at a time, she was not even thinking about this sort of stuff. She was more creeped out by the fact that it was very, again, intrusive into her life. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that would freak me out. I probably would feel the way Gary felt, like, who is this? Like, I think somebody was playing a joke on me. But that, like, I've listened to these a couple of times, and I was listening to pronunciations. I was listening to, all that stuff. And to me, and I'm usually a skeptical person. I've always said on my shows, and even with you on, I have never experienced any alien, UFO, anything. So I'm not a believer in that, although I don't knock anybody that does. And the experiences that they've had, I'm very interested in, obviously, and hearing them. And I'm not saying that they're not true. I'm not saying the experiences they had, they weren't true or they didn't happen. But there's something with those recordings that are not of this plane of existence, I think. I mean, there's just, I don't know if I'm hearing it in a different way that, maybe, the next person wouldn't. And I'm a very skeptical person. Like, I listen to those recordings. I've listened to every pronunciation, and I was able to block out the human people, and I was like listening to what it was saying. And the way he says his name is one thing that,
it's unsettling.
It is very unsettling. Thank you. That's the good word. I mean, I was saying uncomfortable, but it's more this unsettling feeling.
Yeah. And no,
it wasn't threatening. It wasn't aggressive. It wasn't, so why would it give that feeling?
Well, I mean, all right, here's a great example. I mean, because let's be honest, the existence of if this is real. Now, again, I wasn't there to prove that it happened. I also wasn't there to prove that it didn't happen either.
Correct.
So I just tell the story. It's up to you to decide. My objective is just to tell you this story and share with you the experiences that so many of us have gone through. And, that's it. My job is not to change your mind. If you have a certain worldview, then you have a right to that, And, and that goes for, when I mean you, I don't mean you, Taryn. I mean, like you, everybody.
Right. Oh, yeah.
All I know is that there are certain people who have these strange things happen to them for whatever reason. I don't know the rhyme or reason. I have my thoughts, but again, speculative, right? I can't conclusively prove this. I can just present it to you, look for patterns, similarities, see where the connections go, and just, be taken for a ride by the phenomenon, if you will. But the existence of whatever this is, there's no doubt something is taking place. There's just too many reports to deny it, right? Something is happening here, and it's paradigm shifting. To accept it as an extension of our reality is disturbing, because what does that mean? Does that mean we're not in control? That's disturbing. Can you accept that? I'm not asking you to accept it. I'm just asking you to consider it. That's all.
Right.
Look at all the, taking this a step further, right? Like, look at all the new species of animals and insects and birds that we find, plants all the time, right? We're continually discovering it. More than 80% of the underwater realm has been unmapped, unobserved, and unexplored, at least according to the National Ocean Service, earlier this year. So for us to consider, to think that we have all this figured out is very premature and very naive.
Oh, absolutely. I think I definitely think that we're not the only ones that are occupying space and time and this and that. I know that. I don't believe that. I think that there's things out there that we have no idea about, and and things that we probably wouldn't be able to wrap our heads around, right?
I don't think we're meant to discover it.
Right. I don't think we would be able to handle it. I don't think that I don't think that we would be able to handle what is out there, actually. And it's interesting with these, because whenever I have people on and we're talking about whatever it is that we're talking about, it always comes down to, like, are ghosts and cryptos and aliens and all this stuff, is it just all one big, are they all connected? Which I do believe that whatever is out there that is a phenomena that we can't see, or I do think it's all connected some way, because these phone calls, you also hear of people getting phone calls from past loved ones.
That's right.
They'll pick the phone up and they're on the other line, so that is a way to communicate, for, I don't even know what to call it. I mean, I say this all the time, like, as humans, we have to label everything, so just because who knows if it's the same thing. It's just, you and I are different, and me and everybody that's watching is different. So, but we're still humans, right? So how do we not know that all of these things are in that same big category? It's just that, one's Justin, one's Taryn, one's Jocelyn, one's, or we're just naming it different things because they have different characteristics, or they act a different way, or they sound a different way, or they move a different way, or present themselves a different way.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's such an intriguing field, but it's such a frustrating field, because there are no answers to this. Again, I know it's cliched. There are more questions than answers. Well, you get into this long enough, you're going to find out that to be true, and it's, can you accept it? So many other investigators, that I work with or, corresponded with, have been on this, like, fact-finding mission, this truth-seeking mission, if you will, to get to the bottom. They're going to figure it out. They're going to get all the answers. Well, look, humanity has been looking at this stuff for a very long time, and we're nowhere close to finding the answers now as opposed to back then.
Right.
It could be that this mystery is just not a solvable one. It's not meant to be understood, because it may not even involve us.
Right.
Again, not to, spin this into like a Wednesday sermon, if you will, but I look, I study a lot of scripture in the Christian Bible, right? And there's one particular part in there that has always fascinated me, right? With I think it was Joshua. He's ready to attack this city, and as he's at the top of this mountain, he sees an individual off to his side, right? And he's thinking, are they for us or against us, right? So he approaches the individual and he goes, hey, what's your deal, man? Like, are you going to attack us? Or are you going to help us? And the guy goes, neither. I'm part of the Lord's army. What does that mean? That, to me, that implies that there are forces at play here that are neither good nor evil. They're neither positive or negative. They're neutral. And it could be with some of this phenomenon, not all of it, but some of it. It could be there for reasons unbeknownst to us.
Right.
But for whatever reason, we're connected, or we tend to overlap or intertwine with it. And that's where the strangeness happens. And immediately, as humans, we think this is about us, right? This centers around me. Well, maybe not. So I want, people to kind of like, when you're approaching this phenomenon, look at it from a different lens, right? Look at it from a different angle. And you might save yourself some headaches, but you also might kind of stumble upon a different perspective that you never thought about before. And that could allow you to better understand the individual who is experiencing it, right? They know less than you. And I'm talking to the investigators and researchers out there. The people who are experiencing this stuff, they don't know anything about this. So the way they're responding is not going to be how you and I would respond. They're not trained in this, okay? They're not going to instinctively grab the camera and take the, the smoking gun footage or do what Gary did and record this stuff. But every once in a while, somebody does. And that's amazing. So I applaud these individuals who are taking the courage to share their story. Yes, they're going to get mocked. They're going to get laughed at. Shane can certainly attest to this. People to this day still question him with the story, but he knows what happened. His employees know what happened. Everybody who was involved with his case knows the truth. They don't care what other people think.
And I was just thinking about this too. Could Shane have been a conduit for whoever experienced those two? For it to, you know what I mean? Because they knew Shane had already had these experiences. So he's already connected with that part of the universe, if you will.
No, you bring up a great point, Taryn, because again, what if the phenomenon uses certain individuals to reach other individuals? What if this isn't about Shane? What if this is about somebody else?
Right.
In a weird, twisted way, what if this is about you or connected to you in some way, or some person listening out there? I don't know. Again, we can only speculate.
Let's look with Casper.
Yeah. Viewer beware.
Casper's easy.
Yeah, and look, I ask myself this all the time when I'm like following a lead or investigating something. There's stories that I don't want to talk about now because I'm still doing some investigating on.
That means you'll have to come back on and talk about them.
Yeah, in time. But I have to be careful because sometimes things will happen that will make me pause and wonder, okay, is there another reason for something to happen? Or is there another reason why I'm crossing paths with this individual that's connected to this event, that's connected to this, that's connected to that? It tends to get very disturbing sometimes when you realize that the phenomenon is also a couple steps ahead of you.
Right.
It seems to anticipate how you're going to react to stuff, when you're going to react to stuff, and just precisely how you're going to approach it. And it does that, and it maintains its elusiveness rather well. So, you have a lot of investigators that go, I'll just protect myself with white light and all will be rosy.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
Maybe. Or is there a consciousness connection? Is there some sort of tie-in with intention? Again, could it have been that maybe Gary was in a certain state of mind that created some sort of beacon out there, and he was just the person who got, taken for a ride, if you will, by the phenomenon. Again, we can only speculate,
right?
But it's certainly interesting, and it gets very, very weird when, as an investigator, a researcher, an author, I'm like, all right, I can't wait for the MIB to show up on my door. Can't wait for it, right? I'm ready. Well, they don't. Instead, they show up with other people in my life.
So yeah, I was going to ask you,
Yeah.
as an investigator, researcher, author, are you? I mean, you're so close to it. You have this yearning to,
Mm-hmm.
and you're opening. I mean, you're clearly you're opening because you're looking for it.
Yeah, but
You personally have never had an
no,
experience.
I've had very bizarre encounters with individuals that were very odd. Would I consider them MIB? No. But they were strange nevertheless. Something that your audience needs to be aware of with the MIB phenomenon is it's not always men. It's not always wearing black outfits. Okay. It's not always me, even though I'm wearing a black outfit, right? It's like
Somebody said at the beginning, like, I love that he's wearing all black.
That's right. That's right. Shout out to Jamie for that. But I think these experiences happen with people a lot more than we're realizing, because people are trained to look for a certain stereotype in the MIB phenomenon, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the fact of the matter is, these are strange experiences with strange people. And I don't mean, crazy people that you run into in Walmart,
Say, Walmart.
Right.
Walmart,
There's a difference. No disrespect to Walmart. It could be Target, it could be CVS, whatever. But people you run into that just you'll know it. When it happens to you, you'll know it. And you won't know it in the moment. You'll realize it after the fact. You'll be like, wait a minute. Something happened here that is weird. And when you begin to look for those things, then then you're uber aware, and you're kind of like on high alert. And then other strange things may happen because you're kind of like tuned in that frequency. And I'll give you an example. So in 2018, October 2018, I was invited by Marty Haynes and Marcia Moore, who you're aware of. They're two business owners. They have this really cool metaphysical shop in Mount Laurel, New Jersey. At the time, they had it in Bordentown, New Jersey. And they invited myself and a bunch of other people, like Bruce Tango, father of Dave Tango from Ghost Hunters, and Rosalind and Michael Lewis, also, great people there, to speak every week for that month of October. Now, I was kicking off the month talking about this crazy nonsense, the MIB phenomenon. And where I was giving the presentation was a restaurant. It was called the Old Town Pub, which on the side of the building, it says the Farnsworth House, right? Since it's right there on Farnsworth Avenue. Still there today. You can check it out, Bordentown, New Jersey. Anyways, I'm speaking there. Nothing weird happens. Nothing at all. Next week, Bruce Tango speaks. Nothing weird happens. The third week, Rosalind and Michael are speaking. Now, it was on that third week that Marty and Marcia decided to go out for a smoke break. They're standing there on the corner. And as they're standing across the street, or across from the pub's right in front of them. They're standing right here. Across the street, there's a pharmacy, and they notice an odd-looking individual, a man. He's coming across the street diagonally to where the pub was. They looked again, but he had already crossed the street, and it was remarkable to them how quickly he did that, right? But again, they're not jumping into paranormal. They commented to one another, hey, this is a little weird. And then to their amazement, the guy's gone. They wonder where he went. They peeked around the corner of the pub, and sure enough, there he is all the way down that street. Now, how he got all the way to the far end of that street, blows their mind. It was all in a matter of seconds. They're conversing about this, and then they look up again, and here's the guy right in front of them.
Wow.
And he's peeking into the pub. He didn't acknowledge either one of them, or anyone for that matter. He peeks in the pub, looks around, pops out, and then heads down the street. When Marty and Marcia looked at each other in disbelief, they looked back down the street, and he's completely gone. Completely gone. Where did he go? In the description that these two women gave me, they said that the man was very thin, very pale, wearing your textbook black fedora hat with a long, dark trench coat. And it was dark gray. And they remembered that the individual was wearing jeans and sneakers, right? Now, Marty distinctly remembers him wearing shaded glasses, which was bizarre because at that time of night that they had the event or the experience, the sun had gone down. So why he was wearing sunglasses, why he was looking this, like a MIB, anybody's guess. Now, was he there for me? I don't know. Was he there for Michael and Rosalind? I mean, I find it peculiar because Michael has had direct encounters with these strange individuals before. He and his group, including Christopher de Cesare, who is known as the ghost boy of Geneseo, right? Whose birthday it is today. Shout out to Chris.
Is it? Oh, I had him. We had him on the show. He's awesome. We love him.
Yep. So he's experienced this as well. So I wrote about this in the book. But again, they didn't call them Men in Black. They had a different term for them. They referred to them as Beastie Boys. That was their code name whenever these guys were around. Here's where it gets even more synchronistic. When you talk to Shane Sovar, he's a huge Beastie Boys fan.
Yeah, no, I am too. That's awesome. I love that they call Beastie Boys. Yeah.
Now, again, they don't know each other, but I find those little odd synchronicities a little fascinating, right?
Yeah.
But again, why was he there? And prior to this, Marty and Marcia didn't really think about the MIB phenomenon. Prior to my lecture, they weren't talking about this. They weren't investigating it. And yet afterwards, the seed has been planted. Now they see something. So did they somehow open themselves up to this and notice something interesting? Again, it's very odd. One of your old co-hosts on the Paranormal Brew, Michael Brown.
Yeah, I was going to say, bring up the helicopter thing, right? It was what you were talking about. Remember you said you heard the helicopter. It sounded like helicopters above him or something.
No, I'm referring to a different story. When Michael Brown was reading my book specifically about the MIB, he noticed that there was a black Suburban that pulled up right outside his window, directly for him to see. And he was like, "Oh, are you kidding me? Come on, give me a break." And it was right at the park. Now, again, coincidental? Of course, probably. But more than a little strange, it kind of like stops people in their tracks. More recently, I received a report of an individual who picked up my book. He was en route to a funeral, and a copy of my book was on his mother's table. He picked it up. He starts reading about the MIB stuff. And then he puts it down. He's like, "Oh, that's interesting." He puts it down. He goes to the funeral, takes his mother there. Then he leaves the funeral, drops his mother off, goes back home. As he's on his way home, he sees 3 strange individuals in a field. And he's like, "That's weird. They look like MIB to him." And he's like, "I was just reading about this." And then he looks away, looks back, they're gone. He's like, "That's strange." I think it was the next day or a couple of days later, he's on his way to work, driving by the same road again. He sees the same individuals. Now he's ready. He stops his car, gets his camera. They're gone. They just vanish. Could something have unlocked in his mind? Now, one could make the argument, okay, maybe this is just imagination. Once we plant the seed, then they're seeing stuff.
Right.
But in Marty Marsh's case, those are 2 witnesses who are seeing the same thing. Going back to Michael Brown, right? Your old co-host, he had an interesting encounter involving a sniffing man, a different type of MIB. And again, he and his partner Beth had also encountered this individual. So it's very interesting when you look at all these cases, like they have certain elements of the MIB phenomenon, but they're not the stereotypical MIB experience.
So I was going to say for like people that you're probably going to hate what I'm going to say because it's movies, it's entertainment. I get it. You know what I mean? It's not exactly, but in your years of research, if you were to like if we were to take Signs and then we were going to take Close Encounters of the Third Kind, or we were going to take, I had some other ones in my head, Fire in the Sky.
Okay. Yep. With Travis Walton.
Travis Walton, right? I mean, like, and then, you know, I know The Matrix is The Matrix considered, or I thought The Matrix was more like computery type thing, but for me, like that, like like I said in the very beginning, I picture Men in Black to be like the Mr. Andersons, right? And then you have the movie Men in Black, right? So all this stuff is like going through my head while we're talking, because that's the only thing I have to relate to is like what I've seen on TV, you know?
Yeah.
So when you were saying that the guy that came to the house, you know, was, you know, but could he be a shapeshifter? Could he have been like somebody that, you know, presented himself one way, or, you know, this way, you know, could it have been the same person? So with I think it was Shane, where the two guys that walked in didn't look like the one that he encountered, but could it have been the same? He just made himself look. They just made themselves look different, or made it look different. You know, to try to.
Right? Yeah,
I
mean, no, it's again, it's so hard to kind of like.
I know.
Figure this out, right? I mean, again, I can offer speculation, unfortunately, but I think
with anything, it's with anything with the unknown. You know, I mean, nobody can really say what it is.
Right, exactly. And you bring up an interesting point because, you know, again, with archetypes, right? Like, could it be that there is no definitive form to this stuff, right? Maybe the MIB are shape-shifting. Maybe they're taking on different things. I don't know. But one, you know, again, what to look for. Some of the things that I've noted, you know, some of the similarities from report to report is so that your audience knows what to be on the lookout for. Now, again, there's a lot of people out there. So don't just automatically assume that they're MIB or strange people or whatnot. Take this with a grain of salt, please.
You're gonna be getting like a whole bunch of emails and messages and things like, I mean, I was in Walmart.
Exactly. You know, it tends to be okay. So what do they look like? What are some of the things to keep an eye out for? Ill-fitting clothes, either very, very baggy or very, very tight. I've noticed that there's in the majority of of cases that what they're wearing is either is very nondescript. It's very, dare I say, it blends in. If you are not paying attention, you'll overlook it. But some of the experiences, yes, some of them do follow this stereotypical MIB as you know it today, the movie experience, right? But some of them don't. What you want to look for is that ill-fitting clothes. That's one good indicator. Not all of it, but just a good majority of it. Their mannerisms. That's what you really want to pay attention to. This robotic nature, this mechanical nature, the way that they move their arms and limbs. It's very stiff. It's kind of stilted. The way that they speak, it's very slow. It's very methodical. It's very precise. It's almost like they're trying very hard to be perfect, and it comes across as very imperfect. Mm-hmm. The way that they look, sometimes there'll be no hair on their body whatsoever, no facial hair, no eyebrows, no eyelashes, in the case of Shane Sovar's Curious Gentleman. Sometimes their lips will appear painted on. Sometimes they won't blink. Sometimes they'll look very disturbing. They can be very short. They can be very tall. Usually it's like 1 or 2 or 3. I don't have any reports of a whole bunch of them. That being the case, that doesn't say that doesn't happen. It's very hard to kind of pinpoint it, but that's a general idea of what to kind of look for. But I assure you, if something strange happens, you will know, because it will leave you very disturbed, very unsettled. Be like, that was weird, very weird. So does that kind of help answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting because even though I didn't firsthand experience the phone calls,
Mm-hmm.
those phone calls left me feeling like that was not like it was very unsettling. Like I looked at my boyfriend and I said, I feel like we shouldn't have listened to those phone calls. It was just so weird. The feeling that it, you know,
Yeah.
and I think, what was I going to say? Uh, oh, in your, I was going to ask a question to you. In the years that you have been researching and stuff like that, do you find that you have that there's certain times or like right now, the country's in turmoil, right? So
Mhm.
would you find that there's more an uptick in people coming to you and or people having experiences? Are there, seasons? Are there times a year, or is it just all over the place?
It really doesn't matter. I mean, this stuff can happen at any given moment. I mean, I haven't seen like an uptick in, reports, or at least people are not sharing more reports because everybody's indoors. I think people are more focused on what's happening in the world in regards to the pandemic, more so than they're looking at, strange phenomena. They got enough to worry about. That being said, yes, it is still happening, I'm sure. Obviously strange things happen, take place all the time, but I don't think there's any correlation to it. Yeah, I mean, not at this time. I don't have any data to support it to say, hey, yeah, there's a correlation. Now, could that change? Maybe.
Right. How do you feel about the fire in the sky?
Oh, the Travis Walton case.
So I met him at one of the phenomenologies,
Mhm.
and even he's a very nice person. He's a very nice
Mhm.
man.
Yep.
But even being in his presence, you almost feel that aura of, you know, um, the otherworldly intelligence, if you will. I don't know what to call it, but I mean, you almost feel that when you're talking to him.
Yeah. Yeah. So the Travis Walton case is really interesting, and because there's more to that case than he's talking about. Every it's interesting. I'd written an article for the site for normalparanormal.org about that, and again thinking, because I saw one of his presentations. I've seen him speak a lot, and very sincere individual, very honest. Something happened to this man, and he's still
Right.
bothered by it today.
Right.
You can see that. I remember being at a MUFON conference when he was first starting to um, really go out on the public scene and talk about this after kind of not talking about it for a while. And they had a, stupid alien doll up at the podium, right? And they had it there and he's speaking and he just got really bothered by it. And he finally said, hey, can we move this thing? Because it's,
Yeah.
it's really, I don't like this here.
Right.
Well, no kidding, because he went through something very traumatic.
Right.
When they showed clips of the movie Fire in the Sky, he had to hold his ears and look away while they're playing these clips because it brought back some of those memories. Now, is the movie accurate to what he went through? I don't know. You'd have to ask him. But
Right.
nevertheless, I can't speak for him, but I've seen that type of reaction before. When people are sharing their experiences with me, they're very reluctant. They tend to hold back a lot and just tell you what you want to know, and that's it. The key thing when you're interviewing witnesses and experiencers is keep the conversation going. You don't want to just be once and done. These are human beings, and they need to be treated with respect and dignity because what they went through is very traumatic, or it can
Right.
be very traumatic. Other people have a different reaction. They're like, "Yay, take me, whatever." Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
but a
No,
lot
I
of
don't
people are like, "No, I don't want to have anything to do
I
with this."
don't
Right. For Shane, this ruined his life. I mean, this now he's a UFO guy, like, and he gets a lot of flack for it. And it kind of pisses me off because he had courage to talk about his experience, not, willingly. And yet people just can't accept that reality. Gary Sudbrink, they still, a lot of people, even like listening to the phone calls tonight, I was watching in the comments, a lot of people are kind of like, they're having a hard time processing it. So, understandably so.
Mm-hmm.
But keep in mind, he didn't ask for this.
Mm-hmm.
These people, they don't ask for this. It just happens. Personally, I wish I wasn't involved in this topic. I wish I wasn't involved with this field. I wish I had a normal life. I could go out on a Saturday night, non-pandemic times, and go have fun. But here I am chasing these, shadows, at every corner, and, talking with people who have strange experiences. What a waste of my time. Yet every time I try to get away from it, it brings me back in. It's kind of like a mafia thing, right? It's every time you try to get out, it pulls you back in. You know the feeling. I mean, Here you are doing the Paranormal Brew. Wouldn't you like to be doing something much better with your time? Yet you were, you were kind of pulled into this, as an investigator. And it's like you're trying to find certain answers to questions that you have. These individuals, like Travis Walton, are trying to find answers, but how do you begin? Where do you go?
Right.
What we're dealing with is something so otherworldly.
Yeah.
Who's going to help you with that? People are just going to laugh about it. Yeah, other investigators, researchers, sure, but even they can be annoying because they're trying to be like, tell me everything. Do you have evidence? Just stop, listen to the people, take the time to understand them, what they're going through, and maybe you'll discover something about yourself in the process.
Right.
With Travis Walton in particular, I'd written an article for the site, going back from that weird tangent. And one of the other loggers, Ken Peterson, emailed me and reached out to me. He said, you're absolutely right. There's a lot more to this story. And I'm going to share some things with you. So he starts talking about his weird experiences. Okay, very strange. Could that experience have not centered around Travis Walton? Could the other people involved with that experience have also had strange things happen to them? And maybe it was just the right people at the right time. Or maybe they were brought together for a reason. Again, we have to look at things beyond the obvious. Yes, the main player in the Fire in the Sky case is Travis Walton. Totally agree. But let's look beyond that. Let's look at the other things. The fact that Snowflake is a very active area. Other people are experiencing things prior to that. So again, let's look beyond this. We can investigate the heck out of one case, but overlook a bunch of the minor details or seemingly minor details that could be connected.
Sure.
But again, don't take my word for it. You guys go out there, do the research. I'm just going to present.
I will take your word over probably most of the people that I know. I mean, I totally respect your research, your work. I was like telling people at work, because my people at work were going to watch you because they thought like the phone calls were interesting. They thought it was like really, and I said, I might be using the wrong lingo, so forgive me. But for somebody that researches, the AI, UFO, alien, Men in Black, you're very grounded.
Well, I have to be, because this stuff will drive you batty.
Yeah.
This stuff, and I have to say, like, a lot of people are asking me, like, oh, when's the next book come out? When's the next book out? Great. I wish I knew. I'm trying to, but understand I have to take a break from this because it affects me too on an emotional level and a mental level. Like, if I don't get away from it, I'm going to lose my mind because some of this stuff is so wild. Taryn, there's some cases that have been shared with me that I'm still trying to wrap my head around, as if, did that really happen? Like, what does that mean? What are the implications of that? Wow. But, again, we have to maintain a healthy distance, because if you get so caught up in this, the trickster element is going to play you and it's going to take advantage of you. And you know, tying it back to Skinwalker Ranch. That's what they experienced.
Right.
That's why we haven't figured this out. It's not meant to be figured out.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, I agree with you, but I also think that, I think you are, and I know you say like it gets draining on you mentally, physically, emotionally, as does anybody that's investigating anything. When we do the paranormal, when we do the ghosty stuff, or you have Sabrina, my best friend, she's in, she does negative cases, which is a lot more taxing on somebody than, go running around into an abandoned asylum and you're, whatever. But I feel like if it wasn't for you, the people that are out there, and I hate to use this word, but you were the chosen one, right?
Oh,
so
God, thanks a lot. Can I kind of pass that off to somebody? Look, I see where you're getting at, but
yeah, if it wasn't for the yous or it wasn't for the me's, where would people go to,
right?
And how would we know how to help the next person? How would we know how to help the next Shanes or the next Garys or the next Travises? Because clearly Travis was affected still. You're right. I mean, so had he not had this outlet,
and he could even, he can speak to that. He can tell you that, firsthand. Like the community, although the UFO community, although a little kooky, sometimes
it's not.
Right. It's a community, and these are people who have all experienced similar things. So it kind of turns into like a support group. And, on that note, like, again, not turning into a Wednesday sermon, but I've had discussions with church leaders about this. When is it going to come to a point where we welcome people in, listen to their stories, not make assumptions that it's angelic or demonic, and just listen to them?
Right.
Because I can tell you, firsthand that, the church that I go to is there's an individual who's dealing with the alien abduction phenomenon. Now, how do you tackle that from a Christian perspective? It doesn't fit into the framework.
Right.
You have to immediately label it as demonic, but is that right?
Yeah, no, I don't think so.
We don't have enough facts. We don't have enough data. All we can do is just listen to the person and be there for them, support them. Because if we're not there, they're going to seek out support somewhere else. So you kind of have to stay grounded. You kind of have to just be a friend to people, just be a human being. You know what I mean? And just listen. Just shut up and listen. So that's what I try to do. And I think that's why a lot of people feel comfortable sharing their experiences with me, because I'll tell them right up front, look, I'm not here to prove or disprove your case, but I will let you know if I find other similarities to yours, because I'm sure you want answers. I'm going to help you as best as I can, but understand I don't have all the answers. I'm just here to, kind of just put it out there and let you decide, because maybe you have the answer. That would be great. In which case, please email me, because
I put it out there that you're looking for, some stories or people that maybe they've never told anybody, and they don't have to go through me. They can, contact you directly. I mean, it's, I put your website up there, so share it. So if anybody, or if you know anybody that has had any experiences, you might want to encourage them to maybe reach out to Justin for just some guidance at the very least.
And just understand that you're not alone in this. Look, there's a lot of people like you. It's just hard finding those cases, right? It's hard finding the strange individual cases. It's hard finding the doppelganger cases that kind of, Gary kind of touched on it in his case. But they're out there. I know that they're out there. The time slip experiences, the things that they're hard to categorize because you don't know which department of investigation that you should, which organization to go to.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm all ears. Share with me what you got, and we'll go from there. So
That's awesome. Thank you, Justin, so much. I know I've already have taken enough of your time. Please thank your fiance for letting. Oh no, you guys are married now. Your wife.
there you go. And
Please thank her
also,
for letting us have you for some time. I know it's, but congratulations on that whole thing.
Thank you. And also thank my CIA handlers that are outside. They've been watching me the whole time. So they haven't interrupted. Usually the transmission gets interfered and messed with. So
oh, that's the other thing. Oh my gosh, I probably shouldn't say anything because I was about to let you go. But one thing I will say though, we bring up like CIA and this and that.
okay.
I tend to, when I watch stuff about UFOs and all that stuff, like it's just me, natural. I don't know why. I have a long history of law enforcement, military, this and that. So when you have the military plane or the pilots, and this with the black boxes or the audio recordings where they're talking to, the command, or whoever it is that, they're communicating with. What do they call that? I'm drawing a blank right now.
That's all right. I won't fact check you here. You just say the peanut butter and jelly sandwich they use to communicate.
Yeah, when they're like, oh yeah, we have a strange object outside, next to us. You don't see anything on the radar, and
the control tower.
Thank you. Yeah. I couldn't remember what the word was.
Hey, that's all right. That's okay.
For some reason, I blindly just trust those things, right? I see her, and I know in the beginning I say, I'm a skeptic, right? But when the military things come out, or the airplane pilots, it's like, why would they make that up? It's like they're obviously seeing something that it's not is not the norm. It's and for me, it's like, explain it.
Yeah, there's certain there's no denying that some witnesses hold a greater level of credibility based on their profession or who they are.
Right.
But that being, because they're trained, like with police officers, they're trained observers.
Right.
Like you mentioned, right? Like pilots, military individuals, like what have they got to gain?
Right.
For a while in the military, especially the Navy, like there was like a hush hush policy, right? Like you see something, you don't say something. Now that's kind of been changed.
Well, in my head, I'm thinking, here these men are, and I would think that their first reaction in saying something is that they're afraid that it might be enemy approaching or something like that. So, obviously they're going to say something right away. They're going to say, what is this? Do you see this on the radar? What is it? What is it? What is it?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Right. So for me, that to me makes it, they're not making it up. They're not faking it. They're really seeing something. They have no idea what it is.
Yeah.
And you have how
do you explain it?
How do you explain that?
Well, look, I'm not in the cockpit when these things happen.
I
know. We can only take their word for it. Like I said, to you, in this interview, right? Like I just tell the story. It's up to you to decide. I wasn't there to prove it happened. I wasn't there to prove it didn't happen. You want to be skeptical. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
But not so you want to be skeptical, but with an open mind.
Right.
But not so open that your brains fall out.
Right.
Right. We have to approach this as we have to rule out all the normal stuff before we jump to the paranormal.
And that's with anything. Anything. It's with any type of investigation you're doing or any type of anything that you're into.
Absolutely. But we also have to not be limited by the constraints of our own mental framework, right? Like by saying, like, for example, with the UFO phenomenon, everybody points to the sky. Oh, the galaxy is so large, the universe is so large, they could be coming from out there. Okay, and I say, wait, how do you know they're coming from out there?
Right.
because with a lot of these recent sightings and a lot of these recent videos, they're coming from under the water. So where are we getting this idea that they're coming from outer space when they could be coming from within our space?
It's interesting. Somebody watching earlier wrote reptilians with a question mark.
Yeah, I don't know what they meant by that. Email me and have a conversation. But look, this could be anything. But we can't just limit ourselves based on what we want it to be. Look, I want the MIB experience to be connected to UFOs. Sure, it'd be a lot easier to understand, but the truth is it's not. But it's addressed as such.
Right. There was this one question. I don't know anything about that, so I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know too much about General LeMay, but I know that he's one of the principal players in the UFO lore. I don't know a connection between MIB and General LeMay, unfortunately. Sorry.
Okay. Would you classify MIB as alien?
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
It's now again, take this with a grain of salt. The pioneering abduction researcher Daryl Sims. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He was one of the. All right, so you've probably heard of Roger Lear. He was the one who gets credited for removing implants from alien abductees, right? Okay. Daryl Sims was the guy who taught Roger Lear. Daryl Sims is the one who he's uncovered a lot with regards to the alien abduction phenomenon, especially the fact that sometimes there's trace evidence after an abduction event. There's you take a UV light, you can see that there's a residue where these entities were. Sometimes there's handprints. Sometimes there's subdermal, marks on the skin that can't be washed off, and then suddenly they disappear within 24 to 48 hours. Reason I bring up his name is I asked him about the MIB phenomenon. I said, what do you think it is? And he gave me, again, some interesting advice. He said, again, his opinion is that there could be two types of MIB going on. One of which is the very human element, which could be aspects of, alphabet soup agencies running around trying to deal with this. Then there could be this, I guess what you would describe as possibly alien or some sort of inhuman entity. I'm starting to look at a different type of connection, especially with the phenomenon itself as a whole. It tends to mirror certain things and mimic certain things. And I'm wondering if there might be an aspect of the MIB phenomenon that's mimicking the human aspect and is kind of almost, if you will, impersonating it. Ironically, with Gary Sudbury's impersonation thing. Again, just speculation. I'm beginning to think that maybe with the UFO stuff, that there could be this mimicking going on, especially with what I've been looking at for a few years now with these phantom helicopters showing up on the scene during UFO events. Again, our mind tends to jump to, oh, it's military or it's law enforcement tracking these things. Well, it could be another aspect. I wrote about it in the book a little bit. I kind of touch on it, but again, we have to look at it from a different angle. It would be easy to say, yes, it's alien. MIB is alien. I would love to accept that reality, but it may not be so simple.
Right.
Nevertheless, this is a complex topic. And yeah, it's one thing leads to another, but it can't be answered as simple as we would hope, unfortunately. So to answer your question in a roundabout way, no-ish.
Yeah. I mean, and as much as it is out there, it's still one of the most mysterious topics, right?
Yeah.
And it's a little scary to people, as myself. Right. I mean, it's scary because, I say all the time, like, I've never had an experience that I know of. But my focus is Caspers and ghost hunting and helping, in that side of things. So am I not experiencing because I'm not doing what you're doing, or I'm not doing what, people are researching and trying to find, and other, putting all my energy towards that, as opposed to, is that why I haven't had an experience? I don't even know why I'm sitting here saying that, because I really don't want to have an experience. But, I mean, who knows?
Hey, look.
It really definitely is.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, you're easily a 3-hour interview. I mean,
Right.
we could talk about so much.
Well, we're at 2 hours. We'll have to,
Yes.
we'll put a pause on this.
Yes, absolutely.
And continue it later. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in, listening to me ramble, listening to you be a very good host and very gracious host. Thanks for giving me the opportunity.
Oh no, yeah. Please share, everybody, and go to Justin's page. And if you know anybody that has experiences or needs help or guidance, please contact Justin directly. I guess Facebook and
no. Just go to the Normal Paranormal website.
Oh, Normal Paranormal. Okay,
yeah.
Go ahead.
That's probably the best way to
your
reach
thing.
me. Yeah, that's probably the best way to reach me. That website right there. There's a contact form. I get the email straight away, and we'll just start a conversation from there. Yeah, just I love to hear your stories, and I won't judge you, I promise. But I may roll my eyes because I'm getting like a lot of emails. Thanks a lot. But no, but I'm always receptive to messages and correspondence from people. So thank you.
Absolutely.
If it wasn't for your audience, I would just be talking to myself, and that would just be a little unusual in itself. So thanks a lot.
Thank you for coming on. Thank you for your time. And everybody, make sure you check out Justin. And if anybody has any questions, you can contact me. I'll put you in contact with Justin, or like he said, go to his normalparanormal.org, and there's stuff there. Get his book, The Spectrum, Amazon.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that. The Spectrum. It's on Amazon. If you're in New Jersey, there's you can go to Marty and Marsha's bookstore if you want. It's called On Angel's Wings in Mount Laurel, New Jersey. They're one of the few that carries it. Or if you are in the Ocean County in New Jersey, I've just been informed that it is now part of their library system now, the Ocean County Library.
Nice.
Yeah, that's interesting. There's an interesting story there, which if you want, I can share it, but take a few minutes. This is, I will say this: if strange things happen to you while reading the book, please don't blame me. They have been known to happen. I don't know why. It just works out that way. Jeez. And it happened to the head librarian there. She
so she's like, let me get a bunch of these so that I can everybody else can have some experiences.
Yeah, she placed the book down, and it literally vanished. She didn't know where it went. It literally vanished in her house. She called another friend to help her look. They searched the house for hours, and it happened to be right back in the same spot where they had already checked like 50 times. Again, I don't know why this happens, but whatever. Maybe I put something in there that inadvertently taps you into it. So who knows? Let me know if something weird happens.
No. Now I'm gonna have to. I don't know. Maybe I won't. I'll get it. I'll put it on my shelf, but maybe I won't read it.
Hey, it doesn't happen to everybody, but I love hearing those experiences. So and more to come. There's a lot more follow-ups with some of the stories in there. So thanks again.
Thank you so much, and please have a good night. And thank your lovely wife for allowing me to have you for 2 hours. And I'm sure she did. All right, thank you so much.
All right, see you guys later.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I just want to say really quick. I know a lot of people have dropped off. When it tends to go longer, people here. But tomorrow night, impromptu, I have Dana Winger coming on, kind of like to promote phenomenology. The brew will be there. Most of my peaches and all my girls will be there. PCINJ, gotta give a little shout out to my peaches. But tomorrow night she's coming on, so I am going to have another show tomorrow night, and I'm going to have her on, and I'm going to bring her on, and we're going to talk about Phenom. We're going to talk about the past Phenoms, and talk about the one that's coming up June 3rd in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. So thank you, Jamie, so much for being a part of the show. Thank you everybody for coming in. Hopefully you guys join me tomorrow night. Please share the Brews page. I really want to, everybody that I bring on here, I bring on here to kind of promote them, get their research out there, get whatever it is that they're doing. And so that's my main focus. So if you guys could just share the page, because all of my guests I bring on, I want people to know that there's outlets out there. I want people to know that there's, legit researchers and people out there that I really generally want to help, but also, all that stuff. So share the page, or share the people that I bring on, share their pages. You don't even have to share the Bruce pages. Like, go to their pages and share their pages. And I love all of you. Without you guys, I wouldn't be here. So thank you so much. I hope you guys join me tomorrow night. If not, I'll be on next week. And next week, let me see. I always say I'm going to promise myself I'm going to see who's on next week. I don't know. I don't remember. It's really bad of me. But next week, I believe, let me see. Ugh, this is so bad. I try to avoid doing this. Oh, I have my duo Demonology boys. So my duo Demonology fellows will be back on with me again. So that'll be interesting. It'll be nice to catch up with them. And following week, I have Cody Drake coming on again, but we are actually going to be he's going to be taking us on a treasure hunt and a ghost hunt in Arizona. And then I have Haunted MD. He is a doctor who explores the paranormal world. So that'll be awesome. So we're good. So everybody join me, and I love you guys. Thank you so much for tonight. Thanks. See you guys soon.